What's going on, everyone? So Christian Wood signing with the Los Angeles Lakers was massive, right? You're getting a legit 17-8 guy that can also make some plays, pass out of the post. Christian Wood, even in his most recent press conference, talked about how that's one of his underrated values, that he feels that he's really evolved and learned how to make plays out of the pick and roll, out of, the double team. And so his ability to do all of the things that he's capable of doing is going to be a huge asset for the Lakers. It gives the Lakers Anthony Davis insurance. When Anthony Davis misses very likely 20 plus games, it also gives us some depth at the center position, at the power forward position, his ability to play both spots. He's not as bad defensively as people make it out to be. I did a whole video breaking down his entire defense and all the various metrics and stuff like that. Check out that video if you want to know more about his defense. But he now essentially establishes our front court, right? Whether he starts or not is yet to be seen. We will see. Christian Wood was told that he would have a opportunity to, that if he earned it, that is something that could happen. Also, Anthony Davis wants to play the power forward more, right? So I imagine we're going to get a lot of just playing time with AD and Wood on the basketball court. And in those moments, I believe that Christian Wood will probably be playing the 5, and Anthony Davis will play the 4. Now, I've seen people say, why not play AD at the 5? One big reason is to allow Anthony Davis to play in that sort of scout role. With his size and his length and his abilities on the defensive end, him playing in that sort of free safety we saw him and LeBron play last year would be huge for the Lakers and their defense, because he's long enough, quick enough, and has a good instinct on the defensive end that he can kind of play that middle ground and make up the ground needed to go maybe block a shot out in the corner, or switch out and block a shot out on the perimeter, or be the help blindside defender. I think that is something that is really huge for this Lakers roster. But Christian Wood even talked about how, him and Anthony Davis, their pairing could be something special. And it really has the potential to be. And I wanted to kind of explore the possibilities of Christian Wood and Anthony Davis as your front court, like your two, your power forward center duo, right? Because I do think that we'll get different threes alongside them. Obviously, LeBron James, Jared Vanderbilt at times, Rui Hachimura. I think there'll be experimentation, but I do think we'll get a steady dose of Christian Wood and Anthony Davis. Now, obviously, we don't know how good that pairing will be because we haven't seen them play together, but we can kind of gauge the potential that those two have. And that is something that I think gives the Lakers so much upside and excitement, because there is a real argument to be made that these two may end up being the best duo as far as power forward center in the entire league, right? So you think of some of the marquee power forward and center pairings, right? And there's not really anybody that is as good, if not better, than Anthony Davis, outside of Giannis, right? Giannis usually plays the 4, and that's the best comparison as far as defensively. So Brook Lopez and Giannis are a better defensive unit on the surface than Christian Wood and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis was the best defensive player in the league last year. I know he didn't win the trophy, but there's lots of trophies that have gone to other people that weren't necessarily as deserving as another player, right? Anthony Davis also missed games, whatever. But from every metric, Anthony Davis was the best defensive player. Giannis was right there too. The difference between Giannis and Anthony Davis is very marginal. So you're talking about basically the two best defensive guys in the league. So they essentially wash each other out. And then you have Christian Wood, who had a worse defensive rating than Brook Lopez. So Brook Lopez last year had a 109.4 defensive rating, which is ridiculous, right? Christian Wood last year was a 113.4. So 4 points worse than Brook Lopez. Now, offensively, Christian Wood gives you all of the versatility and maybe more than Brook Lopez gives you on the offensive side. And Anthony Davis is an overall better offensive player than Giannis, like more versatile, right? However you feel about Giannis, he's limited in his offensive output. Anthony Davis needs to be more productive 15 foot out though, right? That's been a real problem in his game since the bubble. He was lights out from three to, from basically 15 foot out, he was lights out. He's still lights out 15 in, but he's got to get back to being that guy that is good enough to play out on the perimeter if need be. But offensively, Christian Wood and Anthony Davis are a better unit than Milwaukee. Defensively, they have the edge. But you look at the other big major pairings that come to mind, right? Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, right? Karl Anthony Towns has a worse defensive rating than Christian Wood. So again, not much. It's very marginal. But Christian Wood had a 13.4. Karl Anthony Towns had a 13.7. Now, Karl Anthony Towns is very versatile offensively, right? And is, in my opinion, a better offensive player than Christian Wood. I don't think that that's shocking revelation. I think Karl Anthony Towns is a better offensive player. But Anthony Davis is better defensively than Rudy Gobert and a far superior offensive player to Rudy Gobert. And he's better than Karl Anthony Towns on both sides. So, me personally, based on Christian Wood is a better defensive player than Karl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Davis is a better overall player than both guys, and a better defensive player than Rudy Gobert, and Christian Wood is a better offensive player than Rudy Gobert, I think when you take into account both sides of the basketball, they would be better than that front court duo. Okay, what's another one that comes to mind? Denver, right? They won the NBA championship last year, right? Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon is smaller than both Anthony Davis and Christian Wood. And again, Christian Wood had a better defensive rating than Aaron Gordon. So you have Christian Wood, who had a defensive rating of 113.4. Well, Aaron Gordon, for all the praise he got defensively last year, only had a 114.5, right? Now, Jokic, as far as defensively goes, is a liability, right? So defensively, the Lakers pairing is a better defensive rating than those two. But surprisingly, Jokic, he can at times provide a level of defense. So I don't want to write them off defensively entirely, right? That defensive pairing worked, but Jokic is not good. He's not versatile defensively, right? You have to put him in the right defensive schemes, right? Where Christian Wood, again, if you want all the details, go check out that video, but Christian Wood is actually a very versatile defender and does a really good job out on the perimeter defending smaller, quicker guys. He's good at using a 7'3" wingspan and kind of being versatile, right? And so you have two very versatile defensive players. You have Anthony Davis, who is just remarkable on the defensive side, and Christian Wood's going to know he has Anthony Davis. And Christian Wood is more versatile offensively than Aaron Gordon is, right? And he's also better defensively. So Christian Wood is an overall better player than Aaron Gordon on both offense and defense. And then Jokic is a better sort of fundamental player, I guess, if you want to go that route, with offense and his ability to play make and kind of be the system for Denver. But Anthony Davis is able to give you an equal offensive output and also provide just far superior defense. So again, I think that you can make the argument that Christian Wood and Anthony Davis have the potential to be the best two-way big man unit in the entire league, right? Because outside of that, again, you could go on and go through every power forward center in the league. A lot of power forwards nowadays aren't 6'10", 6'11", right? A lot of power forwards now are 6'8", right? Or 6'9" in some cases, right? But so you have a size advantage on most nights, right? And you look at other teams like Embiid and, Tucker, right? Like, again, there's no comparison on both sides, right? Like, whether you think Embiid is a better player than Anthony Davis or not, he's not better defensively. And Anthony Davis is capable of giving the same offensive output, right? And then Christian Wood is better offensively than PJ Tucker, right? And again, defensive rating wise, they're not that far off. So it's, again, we don't know what this pairing will be and look like, right? There is the potential that maybe it doesn't work, right? If Anthony Davis can't find his shot from 15 out, then there may be that level of just struggle, right? And if he's not willing to play the center position, does he kind of hurt a little bit, right? Does he kind of become a liability at times on the offensive side because he's not able to knock down threes consistently, or he's not able to knock down, 20-footer consistently, right? Where now you have to basically put him in that 15-foot in. It is nice that you could bring Christian Wood out and he'd have the ability to score offensively. But if you're putting them that close, then you might as well just swap them, right? I mean, granted, on offense, you could put AD at the 5, but he doesn't want to bang regardless, right? So that's the issue, the problem. And also, I think the Lakers will probably run a lot of like wide sets where you'll have like Christian Wood and Anthony Davis kind of 15 out because of Christian's ability to knock down at a 38% three-point clip. But it was just something that, Christian Wood said about how he thinks that, they could be a special pairing. And it really got me thinking. I was like, you know what? Like, they actually could be. There is a real argument that they could be the best big man duo in the league because they're both so versatile on the offensive side and on the defensive side. And look, I'm not saying Christian Wood is an elite defensive player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's also a guy that if you have defenders around him, he can be good defensively. He's had good defensive seasons, but he's never really been on a great defensive team by any stretch, right? And even with Dallas last year, like, when did this Christian Wood becoming a defensive liability narrative really start? It was that, like, last year in Houston, when Houston was an absolute mess and disaster, and Christian Wood kind of just didn't even want to be there, and he ends up getting traded. And then you have the Dallas season last year. But perspective and context is everything, right? Again, Houston was an absolute mess and disaster, terrible defensively, and Christian Wood was just completely out of it. I mean, he needs to take responsibility for that, but that is what it is. And then in Dallas was terrible defensively, had no real defensive players, and wanted Christian Wood to basically be Anthony Davis. If Christian Wood is your sole defensive anchor and your sole defensive deterrent at the rim, you're probably not having a world of success defensively. But if you put him around guys like an Anthony Davis, who Christian Wood is capable of holding his own, but like all players need help at times. Even Giannis needs help at times. Even Anthony Davis needs help at times. Right? Like, if you have that help for Christian Wood, he is good enough to be able to be a good defensive player. And we know he's a great offensive player. So the Lakers are going to be very good, in my opinion, on both sides of the basketball. And I do think Christian Wood and Anthony Davis have the potential. I'm not saying that they will, because we don't know for sure. Right? Maybe it doesn't work. I don't see it not working just because both are so versatile. But you never know, right? Everything looks good on paper until it's actually finished in process, right? But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you agree that, yeah, they have the potential to be the best big man duo in the league? Do you think no? The other team, again, is there any other team that, maybe I should have compared them to? Because again, I was kind of going through, like, okay, what would be the more notable power forward centers that we would very likely be competing with as far as like the league goes? And, again, like, there's not really any that are super significant that I don't think that I mentioned, right? You have like, Sacramento with like Sabonis and like what Harrison Barnes or whatever at times. You have who else? Like that's pretty much it, right? I mean, as far as elite level front court pairings, like who else is there that is really comparable, right? Maybe the Grizzlies with Triple J, and like a Brandon Clark, but even then, like, or Triple J and Steven Adams, but even then, like both guys, all guys in that party are all limited. So I think the Lakers are going to be one of, if not the best in that regard. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question.